Hello there, everybody. This is King Mac, your friendly hamburger pal. Welcome to this feature presentation on YouTube. Be sure to enjoy a hot, fresh cheeseburger along with some delicious golden French fries, a tasty milkshake, and a nice soft drink. Thank you all for watching, and now sit back and relax and enjoy as Tony here brings you our feature presentation of TTBurger game reviews.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please.
What's going on, people? Tony here, and welcome back to another episode of TTBurger Game Reviews. You're watching episode 243 of my True Crime series review. We're at the final part here, episode 243, part 2 of 2. Before I get started, I want to give a shout out to Free Green HD and SubZeroMNX for King Mac. I also want to give a shout out to Zedette Hyperlamnia, Megs, Brickosville Stateside, Black Healer, the sensational Noel Gent, Gojira, Rockstar, Pool 69, Doc, the homie RJ, and more and more and more. And before we get started here, as we continue with the True Crime series review, those of you missed what happened in episode 243, part 1 of 2, fresh off the TTBurger grill for a Sunday barbecue, the TTBurger recap to show you all what you missed. And I took a look at True Crime Streets of LA, starring Nicholas Tang Wilson, and gave it an 8 out of 10. Because there were some problems I had with it, with the driving portions and more. But it's still a great game overall. It's not really like Grand Theft Auto, but it comes very close for sure. And that's all we need for sure. But today we're going to zoom ahead to the holiday season of 2005, where the holiday was big, and a lot of good games were coming out that were ready for stuff, and games were just looking to be packed for the holiday season. And we got the sequel to True Crime. We have True Crime New York City by Activision once again, released on November 15th, 2005 for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, and then later for the PC. Now, when you make a sequel to a game, the sequel is supposed to improve on everything from the first game. Unfortunately, that was not the case here for True Crime New York City. I can forgive the fact that this game has nothing to do with True Crime Streets of LA, and I'm fine with that. But I have a problem with how they literally rushed this game out the door to get it on shelves in time for the holiday season of 2005. And it shows very badly that they rushed the game and everything. Because what we have here is a game that is marred with a ton of issues and glitches that break the game to the point where it can freeze up and just ruin the experience overall. It literally killed the True Crime franchise, and not counting Sleepy Dogs, that's not a True Crime game in my opinion. There has not been a True Crime game since this. True Crime New York City was supposed to be a two-part game where they were with the new character here, where there's going to be a second part still make it like that. But due to the game's failure, they had to scrap it all and everything. But we got to get started here, so let's get going. The story of True Crime New York City takes place present day in Big Bad New York. You play as Marcus Reed, who used to be a life of crime, and they track down gang members who double-crossed you. Then 5 years later, Marcus is now an undercover cop for the New York City Police Department. Marcus is partnered up with Terrence Higgins, who was killed in an explosion, and wants to find out who caused Terry's death. Marcus receives a phone call from a man named Gabriel Whiting, who tells him about Terry, and 4 cases he must solve, and this is where the story goes from there. The story is good, I'll admit that. Even though it has nothing to do with the first game, it doesn't need to. But it makes you wish the rest of the game was better. The presentation aspect is not so good. I mean, True Crime New York City is a murky, dark-looking game with bad frame issues that occur every 5 seconds, which is inexcusable since True Crime Streets of LA came out 2 years before this and had a much better frame rate and better graphics. The character models do look good and they animate well, no complaints there, but everything else, not so much. The city, while it looks big and has a lot of detail to it, the lighting can be so dark you cannot see anything, and this game mainly takes place at nighttime in like the rainy, snowy weather and stuff like that. And on top of that, the game's frame rate lags almost 99% of the time in the city. And it's like, it shows too. It's like you'd think that with the dark lighting, it would improve the frame rate, but not so much. The car models look decent, especially the cop cars, but the damage and explosion effects are very, very weak. Like, remember how cool the explosion and fire effects looked on the cars in True Crime Streets of LA? Well, not this time. This time, like when the car or vehicle explodes, it just explodes and then just like looks the same that it did before it blew up and stuff like that. And it doesn't help that the frame rate is so bad that when driving, it's like it stops right before you hit something, which can definitely delay your time, your point of impact and stuff. When you're indoors, like you can go into buildings this time, the frame rate is a little bit better, but not by much. There are tons of graphical issues that wreck the presentation, and you wonder how was that possible. And the only explanation is that they rushed it out the door to get into the holiday, and that's why the game turned out like the way it is. Sound, I have to say, sound is not bad. You have decent voice setting with big-time actors like Christopher Walken, who returns to voice a different character this time, Gabriel Whiting, along with Avery Kidd Waddell, who voices Marcus Reed, Lawrence Fishburne voices Isaiah Reed, and more. And the voice talent is good, but the lines of dialogue are poor, making the talent of the voices pretty much wasted. The soundtrack, though, is the shining part. The music is a mix of rock, hip-hop, and more, ranging from bands like The Bravery, The Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Dead Zing, Helmet, and more. And the music is pretty good. It's better than the music in the last game, for sure. That's one thing that they improved on this game, for sure. But the other sound effects, like the gun sound, the tires reaching, and the crash sounds, are just not the best. The gameplay of True Crime New York City is where everything just dies. This could have been awesome, but the game is just almost murdered and marred by the bugs and glitches and more. But let's get to the goods first. This plays like an open world sandbox game, like Grand Theft Auto, where you do the usual as in the first game. You explore this huge map of New York City, doing crime patrols, solving missions, exploring the city, doing side missions and story missions, and arresting people, checking cars and stuff, and more. And they have this interrogation feature. You can interrogate suspects and stuff by either killing them or wiping them out, and more. And it's really cool to like pull your badge out and say, here's some mark to say, police, you're police, you're fucking police, one time, asshole. It's just very, very cool. And it's cool to go inside buildings and mission stuff to explore, which is actually one of the fun parts because the frame rate is better, and you can explore the PlayStation more, buy cars, buy weapons and stuff, and it feels like a true crime game for sure. The good cop bad system is back again. It's just as fun as ever, but everything else is not so good. It is awful to where it is unplayable. Marcus himself is not a likable character. He's not as likable as Nicholas King, due to the fact that he cusses and swears all the time, he gets angry a lot, and yeah. The on-foot action is weak, and the control is stiff at best. Marcus moves way too slow with no sprint button, which makes on-foot action chases and stuff tedious and frustrating. You can get very, very close to catching the person, but then you just decide to attack them and they'll delay everything because you're not at that right spot. And chasing a suspect down takes way too long. By the time you catch up with him, you'll exhaust any means to keep going. The gunplay is okay, but the enemy AI does not put up much of a fight. Yeah, there's this auto aim features that you can do by holding on the L1 button, just takes the chance out of everything. You just run out and shoot. You just run out and you can shoot them and stuff. The driving portions are actually worse this time because the vehicles handle like they are on ice, making you crash into everything. And they also have this like floaty feel to them. It just makes them feel like you're not in a car. You feel like you're driving around in an inflatable raft in a swimming pool, just floating around. What's worse is that the pedestrians jump out in front of you like they're committing suicide and stuff like that, and it costs you good cop points, so you'll have a lot of bad cop points because you can't seem to steer straight or anything. What's more, the frame rate issues show mostly when you're in a vehicle. And I also cannot forget about the bugs and glitches here and stuff. You will die at random times just by falling off through the floor, and people can get clipped through items, get stuck in it for no reason, and the game will freeze every so often, which be sure you save because there's no autosave feature, but it gives you the option to save after like every mission or so, but still, no autosave feature just hampers stuff. You can be almost at level and freeze up, boom, back to the start level for you. And like I mentioned, when the vehicles damage and explode, they flop around like a fish out of the water. And if you have the Xbox version, there was a huge bug later in a mission that makes it impossible to beat the game unless you use the infinite stamina cheat. So, if those of you who are Xbox fans, you be prepared because this mission here is you'll know which mission it is because it's impossible to beat without the stamina cheat. That's for sure. The controls are not very good either on foot and stuff, and in the GameCube version you have to hit multiple button commands like that and more, which makes it tedious. The GameCube version have a lot of buttons. And the list goes on and on about the problems, and I could be here all day talking about it. We don't really have time, so I just want to tell you the main ones there. And that is True Crime New York City. It's so bad they killed the True Crime franchise, and it has not been a True Crime game ever since. Sure, there was Sleeping Dogs, there was supposed to be True Crime Hong Kong, but I don't count it because it does not have the True Crime name in it. Like I mentioned, True Crime New York City was supposed to be a 2-part game with poor sales, and how bad the game turned out, they had to scrap it. but it's for the best. We do not need another bad game. I definitely recommend True Crime Streets of LA a lot more than this game for sure. If they could have just like made a sequel and stuff like that and just fixed up and stuff, I mean, it doesn't matter what the character could have been. This could have been awesome. It would have fixed all those problems, but unfortunately it's not the case here. Final thoughts, if you like True Crime Streets of LA, I recommend you avoid True Crime New York City because the game is not good at all. Because of the complaints I have with it and the problems I have with it, True Crime New York City gets a 4 out of 10. That's the best I can give it because it was marred with problems for sure. And that's it for episode 243, part 2 of 2 of my True Crime franchise. Stay tuned because episode 244 will be up next. What we cover in the finals, which all I gotta say, be sure to hit the links in the description below if you want to join my Discord group, my Facebook group, and like my Facebook page, and more. And just feel free to subscribe and comment down below. Which all I gotta say is it's Tony. Peace now. Have a good day. See you all in the next episode. Take care, everybody. Fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease.